name is Dr. Glenn Hosking, and I'm a clinical psychologist in the College of Health and Biomedicine here at Victoria University. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the Bunurong, Wadawurrung and Woiwurrung peoples as the traditional owners of Victoria University land and pay my respect to elders and ancestors past, present and emerging. Look, many people might be experiencing feelings of anxiety, distress, concern, perhaps a change in their mood in response to the coronavirus outbreak. It certainly is an uncharted territory that we all find ourselves in. Today, what I'm going to do is give a bit of an overview and a summary of why some or even most of us will be feeling perhaps or stressed, perhaps we're noticing a change in our mood, and perhaps we're noticing big changes in the way in which our home lives are operating at the moment, and how all of these things can contribute to increased amounts of stress and increased amounts of pressure during this home isolation period. What I'm going to do today is give some details and have some discussions around the psychological reasons as to why we might be experiencing some of the feelings that we are, and what sorts of experiences might be common and what might be less common. I'm also going to talk around some of the ways in which we can help to deal with this particular time. And so, of course, there are a number of questions that people ask at the moment. And so I want to really talk about some of those particular questions. Look, certainly the world feels crazy at the moment. Certainly this is an experience unlike anything most or all of us have ever had to go through before. And so it can feel particularly crazy. But a lot of the time the reactions that we're having are not crazy at all. In fact, a lot of the reactions that people are having at the moment, whether it be increased stress, whether it be a dip in their mood, are pretty normal reactions at this point in time. People are being asked to experience and go through things that they've never done before. People might be out of work for the first time in a long time, if forever. People are in isolation and are with their families all of the time. Many people are homeschooling. Many people are trying to work from home. This is stuff that we've not experienced before. And so you might struggle with that. In fact, it would be very likely that you and your family and the people that you know are going to experience changes in the way in which they behave as a result of that. So you might see that there's an increasing conflict in the family. You might see that you and your partner or your housemates fight more than what they otherwise have done. That's not unexpected given that everyone's trying to adapt and adjust to what's kind of going on. You might see that your kids rebel or that they conflict with each other more than what they otherwise would do. Again, that's not an overly unusual thing to be occurring. And we also might notice changes in society in the way in which people in the community are behaving. Again, not all of that unusual. So whilst it might feel crazy at the moment, a lot of the reactions that we're all having are what we would expect to be happening in this very unusual time. Look, there is a lot of tension that results in that, and some of that does come from the experiences that I just kind of outlined. One of the big things that's important within this is that everyone's trying to cope with what's going on at the moment. You know, parents are adapting to the change in circumstances, whether it be managing children who are homeschooling, whether it be managing that kind of conflict. People are perhaps adapting to the change in their work circumstances, whether it be that they're working from home or their work is no longer happening and that they're out of work. Kids might be missing friends and are also adapting to this kind of current situation. And so tension is something that you would expect in this kind of time. One of the things that's important to really reflect on in that is that human beings are pretty adaptable. We generally have the ability to be able to adapt to changing circumstances. And I think there's evidence of that even in the weeks that we have been adapting to that sense of isolation, that we are noticing, I think, many people, that we are becoming much more at ease with what's going on. So we're generally pretty adaptable, but sometimes this takes time, and for some people that's going to take a bit longer than for others. But tension is something that you would expect, given that everybody is trying to adapt and change to the particular circumstances. Some anxiety when we're leaving the house, is that normal? Well, certainly we would expect that. We're human beings, and most of us have never done anything like this before. So some anxiety when you leave the house is normal, particularly given that we're spending so much time in the one location and so much time at home, that the unusualness of leaving the house to do groceries or to exercise is sometimes going to result in some level of anxiety. When this occurs, it's important to appreciate that the things that you can control and certainly work with ways to try and manage your anxiety. Remind yourself that it's expected, appreciate the kind of things you can control. But if that anxiety does move into a more severe panic and you really notice a big change in your functioning, then I would certainly recommend that you access some additional support or some professional help. And certainly there are many things that we can do to take care of our own well-being. One of the important things is to really remind yourselves, or we've all got to remind ourselves, that this is going to pass. This is something that will have an end date. This is not an ongoing thing that's going to be in place forever. Remember that the efforts that we're doing and this difficulty that we're going through at the moment are helping others in the community, and really tap into that side that reminds yourself that this is something that is helping other people. We're all isolated, and it's really important to try and stay connected with friends, families, and colleagues through technology, through email, through social media, through platforms such as Zoom or House Party. These are all great ways in which we can connect with people outside of our immediate home. And this is particularly important for people who live alone. And it's really important that we do reach out to older populations who might not be as technologically literate, because that not only helps us, but it also helps them. And for children who might be worried about grandparents or other older people in their lives, helping them to connect with those populations is a really important thing to help our own well-being and to help their well-being. It's really important that we engage in healthy activities that we enjoy or that we find relaxing. It's very common that when people experience difficulties that they, by default, stop doing the very things that they enjoy. And so in these kinds of times, it's very important to try and do as many of these things that you enjoy, or find new activities that you enjoy or get fulfillment from. It's very important that we pay attention to our sleep and try as best to get regular sleep routines and not blur that. You know, one of the things that comes in line with that is that if you're working from home, sometimes the blur between home and life and sleep can be increased, in that we don't take regular breaks, we don't have a set kind of work time and a set kind of home time. And it's important to try and get that kind of balance, that healthy kind of balance within all of that. Part of this is about getting a break from that and maintaining as much physical activity as you can, because that is certainly going to be something that is going to help mood and help minimise the levels of anxiety. There's a huge amount of information kind of out there. In fact, we're dealing with, in some ways, a bit of an overload of news. And so avoid social media and avoid news if you find that distressing. And certainly try and limit that, because we certainly know that that's something that's going to be helpful to maintaining a more healthier level of anxiety and healthier moods. There are, of course, many resources that are available. Beyond Blue, through their website, have a range of specific COVID-19 resources that are available. You can also speak to a GP. Certainly psychologists like myself have ways in which they can engage with people in this kind of climate. And so I would encourage you to, if you feel like you need extra resources, to access some of those services. So that's a number of tips in terms of dealing with what we're kind of going through. Thank you.